Well, Leigh, this is a momentous time for Walsall Football Club after so many years under Jeff's control. How would you sum it up?
The reign of Jeff, I mean, it's had its ups and downs. I think will be a fair description of the way that it was. But I think importantly, and I say this in all seriousness, there are very few football clubs I'd have bought. This happens to be one of them, and it happened to be the one that I most love. In fact, it's the only one I love. So I think you've got to commend the fact that Walsall Football Club has been run properly. That doesn't always mean it's run in a way that fans particularly like it to be run. But it's been run properly in a condition where, by taking it over, became all these things are always complex and difficult, but a relatively pain-free process. So the club is run very well. Therefore, otherwise I would not have bought it.
From a financial perspective, it hasn't got any debt. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, it has debt, but the debt is held by the directors of the club in the main, and so compare it with other businesses, it's fairly debt-free, and the business financially, from a cash perspective and an ongoing concern perspective, is well run, otherwise, frankly, I wouldn't have looked at it twice. No matter how much I love the club, I'm not going to buy something that's going to drain me financially. And there's no need to do that. In running a business, running a football club, if it's run properly, there's no need to do it. So, I commend the way the club has been run. I am going to be a different sort of chairman, but that's no comment on Jeff. Jeff ran the club how he wanted to run it. I'll run it how I want to run it. Yes, it'll be different. I'm sure whoever takes over from me in years to come will run it differently.
So my obvious next question is, different how?
Well, I think in a number of ways. I think the communication with the fans will be more visible. The communication with you guys will be more visible. This part of the role of chairman I rather enjoy. So I'm not going to shy away from talking to you people. I see it as part of what I do as the chairman of the Walsall Football Club. So you'll see that change. I want to improve the relationships between the club and the supporters. The directors, really, the board and the supporters. That needs addressing, and I'll be doing it. There's a fans forum on Thursday, and I'll be addressing that point. So there'll be that change. The second change is I will be wanting to direct more of the cash of the business towards the playing budget. I've already done that, and I will continue to try and channel as much as I can into the playing budget. The third thing is I have appointed what I believe to be a very strong management team here. Darryl is my appointment. Marcus and Brian and Miguel I've been involved in. Although I wasn't a chairman till yesterday, I had decision-making powers before that. And I think you'll see a difference in the management of the club going forward at all sorts of levels. And I think that's extremely important, because no matter how much money you throw at a football club, if you don't run it properly, you don't manage properly, then you'll end up like some other football clubs in our league and the league above, who are just truly shocking. And I'm never going to take Walsall Football Club there. Never.
So how long have you been discussing buying Jeff's controlling interest? By the sounds of it, some considerable while.
Well, when I first joined the board, I think it was about 9 years ago, I remember the conversation with Jeff. Said, Jeff, have you ever considered selling the club? Come talk to me, will you? And that's even before I joined the board, actually. He didn't forget that conversation, and about 4 months ago, he opened a dialogue with me and said, you know what, perhaps that time has now come. And so we met, and we sat in the boardroom downstairs, and we began the process of hammering out a deal. And that process took 4 months. Actually, in my business career, across the world, I've bought and sold a lot of companies. That's pretty quick. By my experience of buying and selling companies, anything less than a year is pretty quick. So it actually was a fairly well managed process. Yeah, it was complex. Yes, it was detailed, but it was actually conducted in a fairly efficient manner.
Of course, one of the crucial issues is the freehold of the stadium,
Yep.
Leigh.
Yeah.
Just explain the position with that vis-a-vis the deal that you've done with
Well,
Jeff.
one of the insistences I had in the deal was the opportunity, what's called the option, to buy out the freehold of the business. Not me personally, let me make it absolutely clear, for the opportunity for the club to buy the freehold. Not me. What's the point of me holding the freehold? And I insisted upon that as part of the deal that I did with Jeff. If that wasn't there, I would not have bought the club. It was as important as that. And I believe that reuniting the club with its freehold is an important step. Now, I can't do that now. Now, there's technical reasons, financial reasons why that's not possible to deliver that now. But I will be putting together a plan with the rest of the board to achieve that over time. Okay. Now, I wish I could do it tomorrow, but I'm a company director, not a magician, and therefore it cannot be done just like that because I choose to make it happen. It has to be managed over time, but I'm pretty determined to make that happen. Let me make another point though. It's not unusual for a football club not to own its freehold. In fact, it's very common that football clubs do not own their freehold. There's nothing unusual about Walsall Football Club in that respect. And this football club seems to have an issue with it that's blown out of proportion to an extent. I know it's important to the club. Some of the supporters today were saying, Leigh, I can get the freehold back. Yeah, it's part of the plan to get the freehold back. But there's other issues that are just as important, if not more important than that. And owning the freehold of your club, I can see it's important. But in itself, it doesn't make Walsall Football Club successful. It comes with a lot of other things besides that. So I am going to try and make that happen. I'll be putting plans together to make it happen. But it doesn't solve everything overnight. And some people, talking to this morning with the fans, they were saying, we get the freehold back and everything will be all right. Well, no, it won't actually. It's a step in the right direction and it's something I want to try and make happen. But it doesn't solve everything overnight. It's more complex than that. And there are clubs in our league who pay a lot more to play in their stadiums than we do. And people think it's a sort of financial disadvantage to the club. Well, to an extent, yes, but I can show you some clubs who pay a lot more for their freehold than we do, or for their leasehold, effectively, than we do. So I prefer it to be owned, which is why I've got it as part of the deal, but don't get preoccupied by it.
No. My follow-up question only was going to be, I appreciate you've just said you can't make it happen overnight, but can you give the supporters any indication of a time frame when it might be able to happen?
Well, there are some legal issues I need to resolve. So, to be honest, I can't. All I'll say is I'm trying to make it happen as soon as I possibly can. It's one of my top of the agenda items, but I don't want to sit here and pretend it'll happen in the next 3 or 4 months because it won't. It's a big thing to do it, and I will not be able to promise to do that in the next 6 to 12 months.
Okay. Your vision for Walsall Football Club, this is a catch-all, very broad brushstroke question, Leigh, but what is your vision for this football club?
Well, I think let's start with where we should be, which is back in Division 1. I'm disappointed that I'm chairman of a League 2 side. I didn't want to be. I wanted to be the chairman of a League 1 side. But we didn't do well last year and we ended up with the League 2 side. I addressed the players this morning in the changing room and said, lads, we've assembled a squad to get us back into League One. Go out there and get on with it. Was my message to them. And I think that's where we should, rightfully be. That's our sort of comfortable position. And there's no reason at all, with the infrastructure and the finance that this club has got, that we shouldn't be a very sustainable, not a struggling League One side. Beyond that, though, the club would, to get into the Championship, sustainable in the Championship, you may get into the Championship, but Albion did. It is possible to do it. But to be sustainable is a huge financial leap. And therefore, when we're back in Division 1, I will start planning for moving us into the Championship. But that will take additional finance, and a lot of it. It's not possible to, it is possible to do it, but not sustainably, without considerable financial input beyond what's there today. Now, I will do whatever I can, but alone that would not be possible. You've got to think creatively about the way the club is financed, and I'll be talking to people in the coming months about what happens to Walsall Football Club when we're back in Division 1, League 1, sorry, and then we can move on to the Championship, start thinking about it then. So, from a vision perspective, I want us in the Championship, but I am an ambitious pragmatist. Okay, I'm very ambitious about the club, but I'm not stupidly ambitious about it. I am not the chairman of Manchester City, and I actually don't want to be. So I'm quite happy here. So in terms of vision, I'd like us to be in the Championship club, but I want everyone to understand, to get that, we need to change the club significantly to get into League 1. Get into League 1 as we are. We can do that. Beyond that, you've got to rethink the whole business model that is Walsall Football Club, because it's not sustainable in the Championship to do that without not somebody recreating, but refinancing the business in a completely different way. And I say that on the basis of having studied a lot of football clubs in my time as director. I've particularly gone out of my way to understand how football clubs are run, and some of them are just truly appalling cases of business management. And I'm never going to go there with Walsall Football Club. Never. Now, sometimes it's going to make me unpopular. It will. I can absolutely predict it now. I got a round of applause this morning, and that was somewhat, I was somewhat embarrassed, if I'm honest. But it was great for them to do it, and I thank them for it. But there will be occasions when I'm sure they'll be turning around to the director's box and giving me hell. But that's the life of a chairman, and I will make decisions that are right for the football club, but sometimes I will annoy them.
And as you've alluded to already, Darryl Clark is very much part of this vision that you talk about.
Well, he is, because I appointed Darryl and have backed him, and I'd put him in the same category as me. He's a young, ambitious pragmatist. And that's the way he thinks, it's the way he manages, and that's why I chose him. And I really like working with him, and I backed him with this squad of players. He hasn't given me a name yet that we haven't got, and that goes from Sinclair to Clark to Holden to Liddell to all the players that we brought into this club in the last 2 or 3 months. He's come to me, he's come to Steph and said, I'd like to sign Sinclair from Bristol Rovers. We did it. I'd like to sign Clark from Bristol Rovers. We did it. So we really have tried to back. But the good thing about him is he doesn't come with stupid ideas. I'd like to sign Bale. You get my point about being ambitious pragmatists, and that's the way that I am. It's the way that Steph is, and the way that that he is, and Darryl. And that makes me very comfortable that we're not going to have silly conversations.
Just finally from me, patience, you don't get any of that in football these days, but to achieve what you want to achieve will require more than a degree of patience, Leigh, won't it?
Yes, it will, but I'm not blessed with patience myself, particularly. and ask anyone that knows me. And I think, yes, degree of patience, but I'm not expecting a whole lot of it. I think if we were in League One, I'd be looking for patience, but we're not. Therefore, I expect some degree of understanding and patience, but I'm not expecting a whole lot of it.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's great.
You
Thank
said there's very few football clubs you'd buy.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're a Walsall fan since you were 5 years old, I think. Has it always been your ambition to be the owner?
No.
And why did it become your ambition?
I think it was never my ambition to be the owner particularly. I always expressed a view to Jeff, as I mentioned in the interview, that if he ever did come and say, I'd like to be considered, but it's never something that's sort of burned away at me as an ambition. I've loved the club from the day I came here with my father when I was 5. That is true, and so it's a sort of an unconscionable ambition. It's been there in my head, but never been in front of it. It's never. I've had other ambitions in my life, but owning Walsall Football Club wasn't one. But when it became a possibility, I couldn't wait. Once we'd had the conversation, I went home. I couldn't wait. And I'm an international businessman, and to be honest with you, I'm leaving that behind. I'm coming home. I'm coming home to focus more on this football club at the expense of my duties in an international corporate business which I'm leaving. And that's a big decision for me. I'm leaving the international business world because I want to come home and I want to make a difference at Walsall Football Club. It's a big decision.
That was actually going to be my next question, because you are involved in multiple companies, I think, or you were involved. How is it going to work day to day? Is this where you'll be now every day? And
No,
is it a back seat, or are you actually leaving those roles?
I'm leaving in October of this year. I leave the board of a very, very large company, and I just feel the time is right. I've been travelling as a businessman for 30 years. The time is right to stop that. There's been a sort of pull to do this role. I had to make a decision whether I did it. If I did it, I couldn't continue to be an international businessman. So I had to make a decision. I went home and I made the decision to stop that. I've been based in Zurich, in Amsterdam, Marseille, and I've just made a decision to stop it. I resigned, and I leave in October of this year. And then I'm the chairman of another company as well as Walsall Football Club, and I'll continue to be the chairman of the other company. So I anticipate spending 2.5, 3 days a week at Walsall Football Club.
I heard everything you said about the freehold. I completely agree. It's almost a bigger issue for Walsall's fan base than it is for other clubs. But the word in the statement yesterday was option.
Yeah.
Option to buy. You seem very confident the way you're saying they will go ahead. Can we just clear up that word will? Do you believe it will happen?
Well, I'm going to try and make it happen. As I said before, I'm a businessman, not a magician. If I was, I'd make it happen tomorrow. I think I will. It's on my agenda to try and make it happen, but it's not an easy thing to do. It's a very technical thing to do. It's a very legal thing to do. Whenever you deal with property transactions and freeholds, it's complex. So it is my intention, but to make it happen, and as soon as I can do it, I will. But there's no guarantees in this world.
Can you say if you'll be paying more or less rent when your next payment's due to be made? Obviously, we know last year annually it was about 4. It's going to be the same.
There's no change.
No change.
No change.
Fan focus meeting about 18 months ago, I think fans basically asked you to buy out Jeff at that meeting. You said the time wasn't right then.
Yes.
Why is it right now?
Well, Jeff didn't want to sell then.
Okay.
This isn't a difficult one. It was not. The timing wasn't right because Jeff wasn't at that point in a position to. He didn't say to me, Leigh, can we have a conversation? If he had 18 months ago, would have been a good time. But the other thing is, from an international business perspective, I just feel the time is right to stop that and do something else with my life. So in terms of timing, this came at a really good time for me.
There are fans who have claimed they stayed away because of Jeffs. What would you say to entice them back now?
Well, this is a new era. I think my style of management is different from Jeff's. That's no comment on Jeff's. The guy that will replace me in some years' time will be completely different from me. I'm ambitious and I want them to share in that ambition. We have a very good management team here now. This is good. And a chairman that cares passionately about the club, is pragmatically ambitious about the club, and I just want them to. I need them to help me be successful here, and they need me. So I see it as a two-way thing. They need to help me get this club back into League One, and the way to help me is to put some bums on those seats, because that makes such a difference to this club. And when it is rocking the stadium, it's a great place to be. So I'm very pleased with the reaction I saw yesterday. I was shocked, if I'm honest, somewhat humbled by it. It was more than I'd expected. So I just want that good feeling to continue, not just because of me, but because of Darryl and the team and me having a different future for Walsall Football Club. It just feels good at the moment, despite the fact we were relegated. Strange. So I think I just want them to get behind the club, and that includes me, of course, but it's the professional footballers out there that we employ. Get behind them. Forget what's gone on in the past. Put aside your prejudices, your cynicisms, and that you might have. Just bin it. Come back, support Walsall Football Club, because you want to.
If you could get an extra 1,000 on the attendance, a big town, isn't it, Walsall? If you could get another 1,000 in, how big a difference would that make to the club?
Oh, huge. Absolutely. You know, we talk about the player budget. 1,000 more would make us incredibly... we're a competitive club now, but 1,000 more on the gate would make an unbelievable difference. Certainly 3 or 4 more players. It's as significant as that. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeff, I think one thing fans might pick up from what you've said is that Jeff hasn't wanted to sell it, but many years ago he sort of has said that he would listen to offers. So,
well, Jeff never approached me. That's slightly different. He may have been prepared to sell it to somebody else, but he never approached me. Until he did, I was busy elsewhere with life. And when he approached me, as I said, I was very keen to make it happen. So I'm not saying Jeff didn't particularly want to sell it at that point in time. All I'm saying is he didn't approach me at that point, but he did 4 months ago.
you've said that you're not going to run the club stupidly like other clubs, so that indicates a continuation of the way that the club has been running in some respects.
Yes, in some respects, because a lot of what Walsall Football Club does is very good, and I say that as a businessman that runs a lot of businesses, or has run a lot of businesses around the world. Walsall Football Club is very good in many respects. It's extremely well controlled. Its cash management is exemplary. So there's an awful lot of good. It's interesting. What I have to do as chairman is change the things I want to change, but make sure you don't create an instability where it's not required, because there's lots of clubs out there that are incredibly unstable, and guess what? They're not very successful. Stability is extremely important, and there's a lot of things at Walsall Football Club I do not have to change. Sometimes I've had to take on businesses where you have to change things very, very quickly. Walsall Football Club's not like that. There are things I want to change, there's finesses I want to make, I want to change this, I want to strengthen the management team, I want to change the management team, and they have extremely good facilities here. I obviously see a lot of football grounds, and there aren't many as good as this one. And if you look at the training ground, there aren't any as good as that in League One and League Two. So there's an awful lot of good in this football club that I have no wish to tamper with. But there are other areas that I do want to tamper with. and I mentioned them, I think, in the early on. I want the communication between the board and the club itself and the supporters to be strengthened. I want us to be enthusiastic about each other. I'd like to see a little bit more respect between each other. That's not too old-fashioned. I think it's important. I do want to channel more cash towards the player budget. This club is an interesting business model because, and I've looked at other clubs, it has wonderful conferencing and banqueting facilities which other clubs would kill for. And sometimes I think the fans think we focus too much on that rather than on the football. Actually, they're mutually required. They don't have any business without the football club and vice versa. So it's important that we continue with that side of the business. But in terms of shift of emphasis, and I mean, mark my word, shift of emphasis, I want us to focus a bit more on the playing side and make sure that's very, very successful.
In terms, I mean, it is held as a model of a well-run club.
Yeah.
And from the outside, you look at it, and it seems from the events and the conferencing that it squeezes every possible pound of revenue that it can get.
Yeah.
So then, how do you then match
to an extent? Actually, I agree with you to a point. Actually, the conferencing and banqueting is capable of an awful lot more. And when I say an awful lot more, I'm not talking about 5% more. If that banqueting and conferencing facility has capacity to do a lot more business than it does. What it does very well, but it has the capacity to do an awful lot more. And I'm looking at that part of the business as a critical part of the building blocks of the club. The other thing is, Miguel Liera is an extremely important appointment. He's a Spanish ex-pro who has taken on the academy. It's true that the academy is extremely important part of our component of the football club. It's true of any club in League Two, actually. I've appointed, along with Darragh, of course, Miguel, to make a real difference to that. I watched them play Lichfield City a couple of weeks ago. Some of the young players at Walsall coming through. I want to focus more attention on that, not less. I think it's an area we can really make some improvements in as well, and Miguel will certainly do that. He's important, a very important member of the management team, and I've really liked what I've seen of him so far. So it gives you a flavour of things I want to keep where we're good, but there's a lot more we can do. A lot more.
In terms of, you've spoken about your ambition, obviously that in today's game is going to require some sort of finance. And are you hopeful from, an increase in gates, an increase in banqueting conferences? All these little things will add up, and that will give you a more perhaps competitive budget than we've had in the past. Yes,
I think I am absolutely sick and tired of listening to watching Walsall on the TV when we get a live match, and the commentator says they do very, very well on the smallest budget. Let's not celebrate that. I want Darragh to have I'm not going to throw millions at him. If you do that, there's absolutely no guarantee of success. I can think of football clubs that have thrown millions at it and are in dire straits and actually have gone down. I will not do it, and there's no need to do it. You can run a very successful football club. You get the banqueting and conferencing contributing more. You channel more money towards the playing budget. That means somebody else doesn't get it, but that's fine. That's my choice, and I want to focus more on that. But the real key to it, going back to the point that you're making, is getting 1,000 bums on those seats every home game. Problems go away. They really go away. 1,000 less on that, problems mount. So you've got to make the product appealing. That means the football has to be good on the pitch. Darryl is a winner. It was very interesting. We had this discussion about when we're interviewing. You won't mind me saying this. We like passing football. We like it through the middle, and we play it from the back. And that's just. He said, "Yeah, I get all that. I just want to play to win, don't you? Let's just win." He said, "You can play all that pretty stuff." He said, "Then you come up against a club I won't mention." He said, "And they'll clog you off the park." So you've got to meet these clubs with some steel and be prepared to fight. What you will find, I think, is this team is extremely hard-working, and often the team reflect the manager. And if that's the case, they're going to be very hard-working. They're going to be pretty aggressive and in your face. I'm happy with that.
I think the manager's mentioned that he wants another striker in before the start of the season. Any?
Yeah, I met with him this morning. I agree with him, and I think the fans would agree with that. But let me make a couple of points. There's budget for a couple more strikers, and we are looking for bring a couple in the next week or so. True. But let's be careful about this as well. We need more goals from the centre halves. We need goals from the midfield. Walsall had a 20-goal a season striker last year. We went down. So what I'm looking for is goals from all over the pitch. Not, what we need is a new striker. Yes, I agree. What we actually need is goals from all over the pitch. Because that's what Walsall has not done. How many goals did our centre half score last year? 2. So it's an overall picture that I'm looking at here, and so in direct answer to your question, do we need new attackers? Yes, we do. Is there a budget to achieve it? Yes, there is. Will that solve all the problems? No, it won't. We need to get the midfield and the defenders scoring, making a contribution to the goals as well, is my view, and certainly the view that I've discussed with Darryl.
As a fan, sometimes when fans take over club, you'll get some chairmen that are keen to meddle into, for want of a better word, in playing matters. I mean, where do you sort of see yourself in that respect? Completely
meddle free. If someone meddles in the way that I run Walsall Football Club, I find that very irritating. And I will not meddle in the way that Darryl runs that team at all. We talk, and he will say to me, well, "What do you think of?" And I love watching football, love watching Walsall play. And I will have a view. But there's no team talks going to be from me, and I'm not going to go in there if they lose against Forest Green Rovers and rip their heads off. It's just not what I do. Let Darryl manage the football team. So, am I a meddling chairman? No, I'm not. Genuinely not. I will resist any temptation that there may be to meddle. I'm good at doing certain things, but managing a football team isn't one of them.
Just a couple of things. I think just about everything's been covered, but you were talking earlier about how certain clubs have been run. I presume you mean Bury and Bolton. When you see clubs that have ended up in those situations, what do you think?
Well, it's so avoidable. It is so avoidable. You just people that say football clubs should not be run as businesses are talking complete nonsense, because this is what they are. There's revenue, there's costs, there's employees, there's cash, and if you run it recklessly, you'll get yourself into significant trouble and have 12 points deducted. So I look at them with utter disbelief and dismay, and think how utterly avoidable that all was. And Walsall Football Club, I think it's probably true in history, but it's certainly been true in my years on the board, has never missed a cash payment yet. And no player, not one employee, has ever not been paid. That will continue to be the case. And I look on in utter disbelief at the way that some clubs are run. I'm not naming them, you did. But I just throw my hands up. There are others too, by the way. There are others.
And then, as you say, there are others, but would you say Walsall at this level is one of the more financially secure clubs?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, I mean, the finances of the club are pretty robust. If it wasn't, tempted as I was, and like the club or love the club as much as I do, I wouldn't have bought it. I do not expect Walsall Football Club to make me a rich man, but it sure as hell ain't going to make me a poor one. And that is, that's the sort of ambitious pragmatist coming out of it. It's a practical side. The people that work in this club will get paid, and that will continue to be the case. And Steph, who's the CEO, is extremely good at running the football club. I mean, really very, very good. I rely on him an awful lot, as is Dan. Very, very talented people in the football club. But in terms of making sure that the club is run in a financially viable way, there is no better than Steph.
And then just finally, Walsall's done a lot for the community in the past few months, especially with, I think, of Acorns Children's Hospice. Is that going to continue?
At a pace and more. I think I'd like to continue the sort of community involvement and step it up some. I think the club is a very important part of the whole Walsall community, and we need to give a bit back, and even more than we've done now. So yes, I mean I see that as an important part of what I will be doing. Acorn just being one example, but there are others really important. Yeah. That's it. I mean, I'm here. I'm sort of excited about the future, but I'm also nervous. I am nervously confident as I enter this new era, and no one will be more nervous than me on Saturday morning when I get in the car and head off down to Northampton. I'll be pretty nervous. I supported the idea of taking the team to Poland. They were off to Poland for a week because it's a new squad. I thought that was a really good thing to do, to get them to work together in Poland outside of the UK, and that seems to have worked really well for us. The squad, the academy have gone off to Holland this morning. They're doing a pre-season tour of. They're playing some Dutch sides, German sides, and Lincoln City are over there. So it's really good for their development and their. And that's something I like to do. It's different than having done it before. Let Walsall go. Let it breathe a bit. Let it breathe a bit. And you can run a business in a way that's so constrained it's strangled. What I've tried to do with Walsall is not lose control of it, but let it breathe a bit. Make some decisions that you probably wouldn't have made. Appoint Miguel, which we probably wouldn't have done a year ago. Just be a little bit more creative, a little bit more flair to the way that we go about this. And yes, by all means be controlled, but don't suck the blood out of the club, Be a bit more creative, a bit more thoughtful, and a little bit risky. Take a little bit more risk about the way that we run it.
You said that you were on the interview panel. Did you have the final say then over Darrell's?
I did.
Yeah,
I
okay,
did.
so-
Absolutely. Darrell is unequivocally my choice.
So I think one of the perhaps the things that's been levelled at Jeff over the last few years is quite a few of the managerial appointments haven't worked out as.
No, I mean, evidently not. I mean, I think we've struggled appointing really good football managers. I mean, I appoint managers all over the world for various roles. Appointing a successful football manager is probably one of the most difficult of all those challenges. But when I met, and we did look at others, by the way, Darrell just hit it off with me. And I go back to the point I've used the phrase 2 or 3 times. I was looking for an ambitious pragmatist, and he fitted that particular bill. And so I had no doubt he was the right guy to come into Walsall Football Club, and I was delighted when he said, "Yep." He regards this as a project, and so do I. You know, you've got to take a football club and you've got to get it out of League 2, get it back into League 1, then reappraise where you take it next and how you get it there. But that's what I'll be focusing my attention on, not going out in the changing rooms and shouting up for losing 2-1 to Leighton Orient or whoever it might be, because it will happen. Sadly, it will happen, and it's not the way it will be.